My daughter was marrying the son of a millionaire. All the guests admired the perfect couple. But when I caught the bridal bouquet and found a note tucked between the petals that read, "Mom, save me," my face instantly went white. Welcome to Betty's Stories. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and liked my video. Now, let's jump back into my story. I'm sure you'll love it if you keep listening till the end. Doris Jones stood near the edge of the dance floor, unable to tear her eyes away from her daughter. Simone, in a snow-white gown embroidered with pearls and crystals, looked like a fairy tale princess come to life. The light from the massive chandeliers shimmered on her hair, styled in an elaborate updo, and her train floated behind her like a soft cloud. Standing next to her was Preston Sturgis, tall, distinguished, and wearing a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He smiled at the guests with the confident smirk of a man accustomed to getting whatever he desired. The wedding was being held at the Sturgis Ancestral Estate, about 30 miles outside the city. Doris had never been to a place like this. It was a massive house with columns, marble staircases, and crystal chandeliers the size of small cars. In the garden, where tables were set up for the guests, hundreds of roses perfumed the air, and a transparent tent, decorated with garlands of fresh flowers, was stretched over the dance floor. Waiters in white gloves served champagne, and on a separate table stood a 4-tiered cake, each layer a work of art. Doris mechanically adjusted her own outfit, a modest beige dress she'd bought at a local department store. Next to guests in designer clothing, she felt completely out of place. The women sparkled with diamonds, the men discussed business and yachts, and she, a local certified public accountant for the county health department, could only nod and smile. "Doris, you must be so happy," chirped some distant relative of the groom, dripping in gold and furs, even though it was a warm May evening. "Your daughter has made such a match. Preston is the heir to an entire empire, you know. Real estate, construction, investments. She'll never want for anything now." "Yes, of course." Doris forced a smile. "I'm very happy for Simone." The woman kept talking, but Doris was no longer listening. Her eyes found her daughter again in the crowd. Simone stood next to Preston, accepting congratulations, but something in her posture made her mother's heart clench. Her back was too straight, her shoulders tense, her smile looked painted on. Doris knew every curve of her daughter's face, every habitual expression. And right now, she saw that Simone was not relaxed, not enjoying that light, genuine happiness a bride should feel on her wedding day. Doris remembered how just 6 months ago, Simone had come to her, beaming, to tell her about meeting Preston. It happened at a trendy cafe where Simone was with her friends after work. Preston had approached their table, apologized for his boldness, and said he couldn't leave without meeting such a beautiful woman. Simone had laughed when recounting the moment to her mom. "Mom, you should have seen the way Kendra and Sierra stared at him. He's so dashing, so confident, and his eyes are gray, piercing, and the compliments he gave me weren't tacky. They were sophisticated." Doris had rejoiced with her daughter then. It had been 10 years since the divorce from Simone's father. Simone had grown up, earned a degree in interior design, and was working at a small studio. She'd had relationships, but nothing serious. And now she'd met a man who, from the first glance, had courted her beautifully and lavishly. Flowers every day, dinners at restaurants whose names Doris had only seen in magazines. Gifts weren't trinkets, but expensive jewelry and designer handbags. Preston immediately took Simone to meet his parents, who received her graciously. Everything unfolded like a movie, fast, bright, and thrilling. Then, after only 3 months of dating, Preston proposed. Right there in the same cafe where they met, he dropped to one knee in front of the whole room and held out a box with a diamond ring that sparkled so brightly Simone had to squint. "Of course I said yes," Simone had told her. "Who would turn down a prince like that?" But Doris remembered the excitement in her voice. Yet, for some reason, the soft, warm joy that usually accompanied real love was missing. There was an anxious quality to it, as if Simone were trying to convince herself that this was the right thing to do. "Mom, do you understand what a chance this is? He's smart, successful, wealthy. I won't have to bust my butt working 3 jobs like you did after the divorce. I can pursue my passion, open my own studio, travel." Doris decided then that it was normal. Her daughter was simply excited and thinking practically about her future. Love was one thing, but you had to have something to live on. She herself had married Simone's father not so much out of great passion, but out of a desire to build a family, have children, and have a reliable shoulder to lean on. The reliable shoulder, however, turned out to be capable of cheating right and left over 15 years of marriage, and then leaving for a younger mistress, leaving Doris to raise a teenage daughter alone. Perhaps that was why Doris so desperately wanted to believe that things would be different for Simone, that Preston was truly a decent man who would love and cherish her girl, and that money and status, this time, came packaged with integrity and respect. The wedding preparations were lightning fast. Preston's parents insisted that everything be top tier, hiring an organizer who had previously planned events for celebrities. Simone's gown was a couture gown from Milan. The mansion began to be decorated a week before the ceremony. The guest list was drawn up for 200 people, though Doris personally knew maybe 20 of them, relatives, a few of Simone's friends, and a couple of colleagues. Everyone else was the Sturgis family's acquaintances and business partners. Doris felt almost like an outsider at this wedding, as if she had come to an event that had nothing to do with her. She wasn't even seated near her daughter, but off to the side, at a table with the groom's distant relatives. When Doris gently tried to hint to Simone that she'd like to sit closer, her daughter had offered a strange smile and said, "Mom, Preston and his parents assigned the seats. They have some kind of protocol, you know, business partners, status, all that. Please don't be offended, okay?" Doris wasn't offended, but a residue remained, and now, standing apart from the general merriment, she felt that residue more sharply than ever. The music changed, and a slow dance began. Preston took Simone's hand and led her to the center of the floor. Guests stepped back, forming a circle, and everyone pulled out their phones to film the newlyweds' first dance. Doris also took out her old smartphone and aimed the camera at her daughter. Preston placed his hand on Simone's back, and Doris noticed how tightly he was gripping her. He wasn't gently holding her, he was clutching her, his fingers digging into the fabric of the dress, his knuckles white. Simone flinched for a moment, as if in pain, but then instantly put her smile back on, tilting her head back to look up at her groom. A perfect pose for a photograph, a beautiful picture. But Doris saw that her daughter's gaze was empty, as if she wasn't truly there in the moment, but somewhere far away, as if she was just performing a pre-rehearsed routine. Step left, step right, smile, turn. "What a lovely couple," exclaimed a nearby aunt in a purple dress and a feathered hat. "Real love, you just can't look away." Doris wanted to object, to say that something was wrong, that her mother's intuition was screaming a warning, but she kept silent. Who would listen to her? Everyone else saw the ideal picture. The handsome millionaire groom, the charming bride, the lavish wedding. How could anyone be unhappy in a fairy tale like this? The dance ended, and the guests applauded. Preston kissed Simone, a long, performative kiss for the flashing cameras. When he pulled away, Doris saw her daughter subtly wipe her lips with the back of her hand. It was a fast, almost imperceptible movement, but Doris saw it, and everything inside her turned ice cold. She remembered the last few months before the wedding. Simone had been visiting less and less. They used to call almost every day, chatting about everything, work, friends, trivial things. But then the conversations became short and strained. When asked how she was, Simone would answer in monosyllables, "Fine, Mom, just tired. The wedding, you know, so much to get done." One day, Doris called her daughter just to chat, wanting to invite her over for the weekend to bake a pie together, like old times. Simone spoke softly, almost in a whisper. "Mom, I can't right now. Preston's home, we're busy. I'll call you back later." but she never called back. And when Doris called her number 2 days later, Simone sounded frantic. "Mom, why are you calling so often? I'm an adult. I have my own life. I'll call you when I have time." Doris had felt hurt then. They didn't speak for a whole week. Then Simone called first, apologized, and said she was stressed from the wedding preparations, that her nerves were shot. Doris understood and forgave her. But the residue remained. Now Doris observed how Preston didn't leave Simone's side for a single second. When her friends Kendra and Sierra came over to congratulate the bride, he stood right there, listening to their conversation and interjecting his own comments. When Simone headed to the drink table, he followed. When she wanted to go touch up her makeup, he took her hand and said something that made Simone nod and stay put. A thoughtful groom, the guests would think, a caring husband who doesn't want to let his wife out of his sight for a minute. But Doris saw something else in it. Control, surveillance, an invisible leash with which Preston kept Simone close to him. She tried to push the thoughts away. Maybe she was just imagining things. Maybe she was overthinking it, working herself up. After all, they had just gotten married. Of course, the groom didn't want to let his bride go. That was normal, even romantic. But when Doris looked at her daughter's face again, her heart skipped a beat. Simone stood there, clutching the bouquet to her chest, looking past the people, past the luxurious setting, past all the splendor. In her eyes was something Doris had only seen once before, when Simone was 12 and came home bruised after being bullied by classmates. The girl had been silent then, not crying, just sitting with an absent gaze. It had taken Doris 2 hours to get her daughter to talk and find out what happened. The same look was there now, the look of a person who is enduring, who is holding on with all her might, but is about to break. The host announced into the microphone, "And now, our beautiful bride will toss the bouquet. All single ladies, please come to the dance floor." Simone's friends ran over, laughing and squealing, scrambling for position. About 15 young women clustered in the center, reaching out their hands, pushing and giggling. Doris remained standing on the sidelines. At 46, what was she doing catching a bridal bouquet? Simone stepped onto a small raised platform and turned her back to the guests. Preston stood next to her, wrapping his arms around her waist, whispering something in her ear. Simone nodded, raised the bouquet over her head. The guests began the countdown. 1, 2, 3. The bouquet soared into the air, arced, and flew nowhere near where the girls were standing. It sailed over their heads, past several rows of tables, and dropped directly into Doris's hands. She instinctively caught the bundle of white roses, not yet understanding what had happened. The guests laughed. Someone applauded. "Oh, look, the mother of the bride caught it. That's good luck. It means Doris is going to get married soon, too." Doris offered a confused smile, pressing the bouquet to herself. The roses were heavy, tightly bound with a satin ribbon. She raised her gaze to the platform and met her daughter's eyes. Simone looked at her as if she wanted to say something very important. Her daughter's lips moved soundlessly, and Doris almost read the word, "Mom." But then Preston turned Simone towards him, kissed her again, and the moment was lost. Doris stood with the bouquet in her hands, unsure what to do with it. The roses emitted a sickly, sweet scent that was beginning to give her a headache. She tried to adjust them, arranging them more comfortably, and suddenly noticed something white between the tightly pressed flowers. An edge of paper was sticking out between the stems. It must be a note from the florist, Doris thought, or a wish from the bridesmaids. She carefully pulled the edge, and in her hands was a twice-folded slip of paper. Just plain printer paper, slightly crumpled. Doris unfolded the note and froze. The letters were uneven, shaky, as if written by someone in a hurry or in fear. Only 4 words, but they hit Doris with a force that made the ground drop out from under her feet. "Mom, save me." The handwriting was Simone's. Doris would have known it anywhere. The same rounded letters, the same slant as in her school notebooks, as in her birthday cards. Only now the letters were crooked, the pressure uneven. At the end of the phrase, the ink had run, as if a drop of water or a tear had fallen on it. Doris looked up and scanned the room. The guests continued to celebrate. The music played. Waiters carried appetizers. No one was paying attention to her. Just the ordinary mother of the bride holding a bouquet. Touched, probably. Doris squeezed the note in her fist and pressed it to her chest, hiding it in the folds of her dress. Her heart hammered so loudly it felt like everyone around should hear it. Her ears were ringing and her mouth was dry. Doris looked back at the platform where Simone and Preston were posing for the photographer. Her daughter wore the same painted smile, but now, behind that smile, Doris saw a cry for help. "Save me!" What did it mean? Save her from what? From whom? From this handsome, well-off groom in the expensive suit, who was now tenderly embracing Simone's shoulders? From this whole luxurious fairy tale that everyone around them admired? Doris tried to gather her thoughts. Panic wouldn't help. She had to think, to act. But how? Approach Simone right now, in front of all the guests, in front of Preston and his parents, grab her daughter's hand, and drag her out of here by force? She imagined the scene, walking to the platform, shouting that the wedding was off, that her daughter was leaving with her right now. A scandal, horror, public disgrace. The guests in shock. Preston's parents calling security. And Preston? What would Preston do? Doris remembered how tightly he had squeezed Simone's waist during the dance, how he controlled her every move. He simply wouldn't let her go. She needed a plan. She needed help. Doris looked around and saw Simone's friends, Kendra and Sierra. They were sitting at a table chatting and laughing. Aubrey, another friend from college, was with them. The girls had been friends with Simone since freshman year. If anyone could help, it was them. Doris quickly moved toward their table, clutching the bouquet. A plan, insane and risky, was frantically forming in her mind, but there was no other way. She sat down in the empty chair next to Kendra, trying to speak quietly so as not to draw the attention of those nearby. "I need your help, immediately." Kendra, a cheerful, round-faced girl with red curls, turned around. She had been Simone's friend the longest and knew her inside and out. "Ms. Jones, is something wrong?" Anxiety cut into her voice. "Simone is in danger." Doris said it firmly, looking the girl straight in the eye. "I can't explain now, but I need to get her out of here, and I need your help." Sierra, a tall blonde with a sharp gaze, leaned closer. Aubrey, small and dark-haired, looked at Doris in surprise. "Are you serious?" Sierra lowered her voice. "Right now? In the middle of the wedding?" "Especially in the middle of the wedding." Doris took a pen from her purse, grabbed a paper napkin from the table, and quickly wrote a few words on it. "In 5 minutes, go up to Simone. Tell her you need her urgently. Don't let her go for a second." She handed the napkin to Kendra, who read it and went pale. "Oh my God, is it because of Preston?" "I'll explain later. Will you do it?" Kendra hesitated for a moment, then nodded decisively. "Of course I will. Simone's my best friend." Doris took 2 more napkins and wrote short instructions for Sierra and Aubrey. Sierra was to approach from the other side, mention something about a tradition, and lead Simone away, ostensibly to change clothes or fix her dress. Aubrey was to cover them, distracting the guests if necessary. The girls read the notes silently, exchanging quick glances. Doris saw their faces change from surprise to understanding, and from understanding to determination. "Have you noticed anything wrong with her?" Doris asked quietly. Sierra slowly nodded. "She's been different for the past couple of months, kind of withdrawn. We used to see each other every week, chat about everything. Then she started canceling meetups, saying she was busy. When we did get together, she was constantly checking her phone, jumping if it rang. I just thought she was in love, that it was the effect of a new relationship." "I saw a bruise," Aubrey said unexpectedly, pointing to her shoulder. "About 3 weeks ago, when we went shoe shopping for the wedding. She said she bumped into a door, but the bruise was weird, in the shape of fingers, like someone had grabbed her hard." Doris's stomach twisted, fingers grabbing. So it had started even then, maybe earlier, and she, her mother, hadn't seen anything, hadn't noticed, writing off her daughter's odd behavior as pre-wedding stress. "I tried to talk to her about it once," Kendra added, fiddling with the edge of the napkin. "I asked directly, 'Simone, are you really happy? Maybe this is too fast. Maybe you should wait.' She looked at me like she was scared and said, 'Kendra, everything is fine. I'm just nervous. It's the wedding, you know?' But I saw she was lying, and I still didn't do anything." She sighed. "I was afraid to interfere. I thought, what if I'm wrong? What if they really are happy?" "Stop blaming yourselves," Doris said sharply. "There's no time for that. We're going to fix this now. Are you ready?" All three girls nodded. "Then listen up. In 5 minutes, Kendra, you go up to Simone. Tell her you have to carry out an important tradition. The bride needs to have a moment alone with her friends to make a wish, something like that. Improvise. The main thing is to get her away from Preston. If he won't let her go, Sierra, you back her up. Go right after. Support her. Say it's a mandatory part of the program that the planner forgot to include in the script. Preston won't want to look like the man who spoils traditions. Aubrey, you distract his parents. Engage them. Ask a question. Hold their attention. I need the girls to get Simone away for at least a couple of minutes. And after that? After that, I'll take over. I have a plan." Doris wasn't sure the plan would work. All she had was a desperate desire to get her daughter out of this place, out of this trap. She looked at the platform again. Preston was holding Simone's hand, talking to an elderly man in an expensive suit. Simone stood silently next to him, eyes lowered, like a beautiful doll in a display case. The 5 minutes passed agonizingly slowly. Doris stood on the sidelines, counting the seconds, pressing the bouquet to her chest. The note was still clenched in her fist. Finally, Kendra got up from the table, straightened her dress, exhaled, and headed toward the platform. Kendra approached Simone, hugged her, and said something cheerfully. Preston turned to them, his face inscrutable. Kendra continued talking, gesticulating. Simone nodded and said something to Preston. He frowned. Doris saw his lips form a refusal, but then Sierra approached, linking arms with Simone from the other side, smiling broadly. 2 friends against 1 groom. Preston was clearly annoyed. His fingers squeezed Simone's hand harder, but the guests were starting to look. He couldn't make a scene in front of everyone. He slowly unclenched his fingers. Simone pulled her hand free, and with her friends, headed for the exit of the tent. Preston took a step to follow, but then Aubrey rushed up to him, quickly babbling something and pointing to his parents. Preston turned around, and in that moment, the girls and Simone disappeared behind a column. Doris exhaled. Phase 1 was successful. She moved quickly after them, circling the tables. She slipped out of the tent and into the cool evening air. She found them by a small fountain in the far corner of the garden, away from the tent. Simone was sitting on the stone ledge. Her friends stood nearby. "Simone, what's going on?" Kendra was asking. "Your mom said you were in danger. Is it true?" Simone was silent, hugging herself. In the lantern light, Doris saw that her daughter was trembling. "Simone." Doris approached and crouched in front of her daughter, taking her cold hands in hers. "I got your note." Simone looked up. Her eyes were swimming with the tears she had held back all evening. Her lower lip trembled. "Mom, I couldn't. I didn't know how else. He watches me all the time. I can't even talk to you alone." The words came out choked and fragmented. Simone pressed her mother's hands to her face and finally cried, a quiet, muffled cry, as if she was afraid of being heard. "It's okay." Doris stroked her daughter's hair, feeling rage well up inside her. "Everything will be fine. We're leaving now." "No," Simone shook her head. "It won't work. He won't let me, his parents. They said if I call off the wedding, they'll destroy you. They'll find a way to get you fired from your job. Make sure you can't get hired anywhere else." "Let them try." Doris said it with such force that Simone flinched. "I'm not that easy to destroy, and I won't let anyone hurt you. You're my daughter, and if I have to fight their whole family, their money, and their connections, I will fight." She stood up. "But you are going to stand up right now, and we are leaving this place together." "Ms. Jones is right." Kendra said firmly, crouching down next to them. Simone, we won't let anyone hurt you. Not Preston, not his parents. We're with you. But you don't understand. Simone wiped her tears, smearing mascara on her cheeks. He's not who he seems, not at all. When we're alone, he changes. He says I'm his property now, that I have to obey, and that if I try to leave... She trailed off. What will he do? Sierra asked, sitting down on the other side. Simone, tell us the truth. Did he hit you? No. Simone shook her head. He never hits. He's too smart for that. He grabs. He squeezes so hard it hurts, but the marks barely show. He says it's my fault, that I provoke him, that if I behaved properly, he wouldn't have to discipline me. Oh, Lord. Aubrey covered her mouth with her hand. How long has this been going on? About 3 months. At first he was perfect, flowers, gifts, compliments. But then after we announced the engagement, he started to change. At first it was small things. Saying that lipstick didn't suit me, that my dress was too short. Then he started checking my phone, demanding passwords to my social media. He said we were family now, so there shouldn't be any secrets. Simone spoke quickly, as if afraid that if she stopped, she wouldn't be able to continue. The words she had held inside for so long were finally bursting out. He forbade me from meeting you guys without him, said you were a bad influence. When I tried to object, he just gave me a look. Simone shuddered. And then he grabbed my shoulders and pinned me against the wall. Not hard, but enough to make me understand I couldn't argue with him. Why did you stay silent? Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you tell me? Doris felt a boiling anger inside. I tried. Despair broke through Simone's voice. Remember when I called you and then you got mad that I didn't call you back? I wanted to come over, tell you everything, but he found out. He always finds out. And then he said that if I tried to ruin our wedding, if I told anyone, his parents would deal with you. Preston's father knows people, powerful people. He can get you fired, make sure you can't find a job anywhere. And he promised me that if I tried to run away, he would find me no matter where I went. Simone, she took her daughter's face in her hands, listen to me carefully. No one is going to hold you against your will. Not their money, not their connections. You have the right to leave right now, and we are with you. But how? Simone sobbed. We just signed the papers. I'm his wife now. He'll just say I'm hysterical. Everyone will believe him. Look at him. He's the perfect groom. Everyone thinks I'm lucky. Then everyone is wrong. Sierra stood up decisively. Simone, we won't let him keep you. We have a plan. Doris also stood up, helping her daughter rise. We're going back to the tent right now, and you are going to announce that you are leaving in front of everyone, so no one can say later that you just snuck away. He won't let me talk, Simone whispered. He will. Kendra took her hand. Because we will be right there, all 4 of us. Let them try to stop us. They started back toward the tent, a strange procession in the evening twilight, a bride in a torn dress, her mother and 3 friends. Doris walked in front, clutching the bouquet with the note inside. Her heart was pounding, but the fear was gone. There was only cold calculation and resolve. When they walked into the tent, the music was still playing, and the guests were still celebrating, but a few people immediately turned. A whisper ran through the tables. Look, the bride is back. What happened? Her dress is torn. She was crying. Preston was standing near the head table, talking to his father, Mr. Sterling Sturgis. Seeing Simone, he strode toward her quickly, his face dark. Where have you been? He spoke softly, but his voice was steel. I told you not to leave me. Step away from her. Doris stepped between him and her daughter. Preston measured her with a look of surprise mixed with contempt. Ms. Jones, don't interfere in the affairs of the newlyweds. Simone is my wife now. She is no one's wife. Doris said it loudly. So many guests turned around. She is my daughter, and she is leaving here with me. The music stopped. The host froze awkwardly. All the tables fell silent, the guests staring at them. "What nonsense is this?" Preston tried to get past to Simone, but Sierra and Kendra blocked his way. "Get these fools out of the way." "These fools are protecting their friend," Kendra crossed her arms. "From someone like me?" Preston sneered, but his eyes danced with rage. "What are you imagining? This is my wedding. I spent millions on it." "You can't buy a person with money." Doris stepped toward him. "You thought you could, didn't you? That just because you have millions, you have the right to own people, to intimidate, control, and hold them in fear." The guests began to exchange glances and whisper. Preston's parents got up from their table and walked toward them. "What is happening here?" Sterling Sturgis spoke with the tone of a man accustomed to being obeyed. "Preston, what is the meaning of this? The mother-in-law and the bridesmaids are putting on a show." "It's a crazy farce." Preston shrugged, but Doris saw his jaw clench. "Some delusional accusations." "They are not delusional." Simone stepped out from behind her friends. Her voice trembled, but she held her ground. "It's all true. You intimidated me, controlled me, and threatened my mom. I married you not out of love, but out of fear." "Oh, darling, sweet Simone." Celeste Sturgis approached, reaching out her hands. "You're just tired, overstressed. It's normal on a day like this. Come on, I'll give you a sedative." "Don't touch me," Simone recoiled. You knew what he was like, and you still planned this wedding because you needed the right bride, one who would stay silent and obey." "You don't know what you're saying!" Sterling Sturgis stepped forward, towering over Simone. "Girl, rethink this. You are destroying your future right now. Our family can give you everything: wealth, social standing, connections. And you'll go back to poverty, to working for pennies? Better pennies than a cage." Simone straightened up. "Better to be poor and free than rich and terrified." The guests gasped. Someone began taking out phones to record. "Enough of this circus!" Preston lunged toward Simone, but Kendra and Sierra grabbed his arms. "Let go! Simone, stop this immediately. You are my wife, and you are staying here." "I am not yours," Simone said it quietly, but every word rang in the silence. "I was never yours. I am not a thing or property. I am a person, and I am leaving." Preston tore himself free from the girl's hands and lunged at Simone. Doris saw his hand reaching for her daughter, but then a man stepped out of the crowd of guests, her ex-husband, Simone's father, Michael Washington. He grabbed Preston's hand and squeezed it so hard Preston cried out, "Don't you dare touch my daughter!" Michael spoke calmly, but his voice carried a threat. "Not ever again." "Michael?" Doris couldn't believe her eyes. "I heard your conversation by the fountain." Michael didn't let go of Preston's hand. "I was standing nearby having a smoke. I'm sorry, Simone, that I didn't step in sooner. I thought you were truly happy. But now, this boy will only touch you over my dead body." "You've all gone mad!" Sterling Sturgis roared. "Security! Where is security?" Two burly men in suits began pushing through the crowd. Doris felt the situation spinning out of control. "Stop!" She raised her hand. "Everyone, stop!" Everyone froze. Doris stepped into the center of the circle, still clutching the bouquet with the note. "Mr. Sturgis," she turned to Preston's father, "you built an empire. You are a respected man, and your business reputation is important to you. Am I right?" Sterling Sturgis frowned. "What are you getting at?" "I'm getting at the fact that there are 200 people here right now. Half of them are already recording this on their phones. Tomorrow, this will be all over the internet. The full story of how your son held a young woman in fear, intimidated her, controlled her, and organized a wedding against her will. Can you imagine the hit to your reputation?" Celeste Sturgis paled. Sterling Sturgis clenched his teeth. "Or," Doris continued, "we leave quietly right now. Simone, me, her father, and her friends. No fight, no scandal. You announce to the guests that the bride suddenly felt unwell, and the wedding is postponed. Clean, quiet, no excess noise,
And in a week, Simone files for divorce, and you do not interfere. No threats, no harassment, and then this story stays within these walls. Are you blackmailing us? Sterling Sturgis hissed. I am protecting my daughter. Doris looked him straight in the eye. By any means necessary, decide quickly. Every second of delay is another person with a phone, another video online. Sterling Sturgis looked at the crowd of guests. He saw the calculation. What was more profitable? What would do less damage to the business? Preston, he turned to his son, let her go. Father! Preston didn't believe it. You can't. I said let her go. Sterling Sturgis spoke softly, but every word was like a hammer blow. I don't need a scandal. Not now, when we're closing the deal with the European investors. One girl is not worth millions in losses. Preston looked at his father as if he had been betrayed. Then he looked at Simone, and Doris saw such hatred in his eyes that she went cold. You'll regret this, he said almost in a whisper. All of you will regret this. Threats in the presence of 200 witnesses, Michael Washington sneered. Quite the fool, aren't you? Doris took Simone's hand. She was trembling but held firm. Her friends circled them tightly. Michael stood slightly ahead, blocking Preston's path. Let's go. Doris pulled her daughter toward the exit. They moved slowly through the crowd of guests. People stepped aside, some with sympathy, some with judgment. Doris heard the whispers. Poor girl. What a disgrace. Can you believe it? The Sturgises are humiliated. She's brave. I wouldn't have had the nerve. When they walked out of the tent, Simone stumbled. Doris caught her, and her daughter leaned into her, finally allowing herself to relax. Tears flowed freely, without restraint. Mom, I was so scared. I didn't think I could do it. You did. Doris stroked her back. You managed it, my brilliant, brave girl. Kendra, Sierra, and Aubrey took turns hugging Simone, crying with her. Michael stood a little apart, smoking, but Doris could see the gleam in his eyes. Thank you. She approached him. For helping. She's my daughter. Michael put out his cigarette. I was a lousy husband, but I'm not a bad enough father to let her be hurt. Guests began to leave the mansion. The wedding was over before it had really begun. We have to go, Sierra said, before they change their minds. Let's go to my place, Kendra suggested. I have a big apartment. We can all fit. No, Doris shook her head. We're going to my place. Simone needs home, a real home, where she's loved and safe. They got into 3 cars. Michael drove Doris and Simone. The friends followed. When the Sturgis mansion disappeared around a bend in the road, Simone exhaled. I'm free. Free, Doris repeated, kissing her daughter's head. And you will never be anyone's property again. The first few days after that ill-fated wedding passed in a fog. Doris took a week off from work. Simone barely left the couch in her mother's small 2-bedroom apartment, wrapped in an old throw blanket she remembered from childhood. Doris cooked her daughter's favorite meals, meatloaf and mashed potatoes, chicken soup, blueberry pancakes, simple comfort food. Simone ate little, but Doris didn't push. She simply sat nearby, holding her daughter's hand, stroking her hair. Sometimes Simone cried softly. Sometimes she was silent for hours. And sometimes she started talking in fragments, feverishly recalling the details. He said I was stupid. Simone sat with her knees hugged to her chest. Rain fell outside the window. That my design work was childish, that real professionals would laugh at me. When I showed him a project I'd worked on for a month, he looked at it for 5 seconds and said, well, it's not bad for an amateur. And then he added that I shouldn't work at all. That a millionaire's wife shouldn't be stuck in some pathetic studio for pennies. But you are still incredible. Doris hugged her daughter tightly. You wrote the note. You asked for help. That takes immense courage. I wrote it in the restroom with shaking hands. Simone managed a humorless chuckle. He even tried to follow me there. I barely managed to excuse myself. I wrote the note on a scrap of paper and tucked it into the bouquet while it was on the table. I prayed that bouquet would fly to you. And it did. The friends came every day. Kendra brought pastries. Sierra brought a stack of old comedies on DVD. Aubrey brought photo albums from their college days. Remember when we slept in the reading room before the descriptive geometry exam? Kendra pointed to a photo. The security guard chased us out 3 times, and we kept sneaking back in. And that's when I tore my brand new jeans. Simone smiled. The first time in days. Mom, remember? You had to sew them up afterward, and you scolded me for being careless. I remember. Doris stroked her daughter's head, glad she had fixed them, because those jeans were a part of her real life, the one where she was herself. A week later, Simone decided to leave the apartment. She and Doris went to a small cafe on the corner that made the best carrot cake in the city. I need to see a lawyer, she said, stirring sugar into her cup. File for divorce. Officially close this chapter. I've already found a good specialist. Doris took a business card out of her purse. Attorney Vanessa Thompson. She handles family cases. A friend from work recommended her. Thank you, Mom. Simone took the card. You do so much for me. Live. Doris covered her hand with hers. Be happy. That's the only repayment I need. The meeting with the lawyer, Vanessa Thompson, went surprisingly smoothly. She listened to Simone's story, nodding. A classic case of abuse. It's a good thing you left immediately. We will file for divorce on the grounds of impossibility of maintaining the marriage. The main thing is, do not have any contact with him or his family. All communication goes only through me. What if they try to use their influence? Simone clenched her fists. Let them try. Vanessa Thompson smiled thinly. I have connections too. We'll win this, Simone, I promise. Leaving the office, Simone felt lighter. The next step was deciding what to do next. Simone didn't want to go back to the studio where she used to work. The story of her failed wedding had spread across the internet. Don't read that trash. Sierra took the phone away from Simone. They're writing that it's my fault. Simone wiped her tears. That I used Preston and then dumped him. Who cares what they write? Kendra sat down next to her. These people don't know you. Their opinions mean nothing. Simone stopped going on social media. She lived in a cocoon, her mom's apartment, rare meetings with friends, and counseling with a therapist recommended by Vanessa Thompson, Dr. Elizabeth Harris. You made an incredibly brave choice, Simone, Dr. Harris said during one session. You broke the cycle of abuse at the very beginning. You are free. Live in that freedom. 2 months after the wedding, the court ruling came through. Divorce granted. No division of property, no alimony, no claims. The Sturgises didn't fight it. Simone received the divorce decree, and that same evening held a small celebration with her mom and friends. What's next? Kendra asked. No. Simone shook her head. I've thought about this a lot. I want to open my own business. A small interior design studio. I'll work for myself, take the projects that interest me, and build everything from scratch. That's expensive, Sierra frowned. I'll start small. Simone smiled. Remotely from home. I have a portfolio. The rest is just a matter of time and hard work. I'll help. Doris took her daughter's hand. I have savings. Not millions, of course, but enough for a startup. Mom, no. Simone shook her head. That's your money. For your happiness, Doris interrupted. And what could be better than helping my daughter start a new life? Simone hugged her mother. Thank you, she whispered, for everything, for saving me, for believing in me, for loving me just the way I am. Always, Doris kissed the top of her head. I will always love and protect you. You're my girl. The next few months flew by in work. Simone created a website, launched her social media pages, and began taking her first orders. She worked with pleasure. Doris helped as much as she could, managing the bookkeeping and providing moral support. They became closer than ever. 6 months after the divorce, Simone received a commission to design a small apartment. The meeting with the clients took place at a cafe. Sorry we're late. A man in his early 30s walked into the cafe. Traffic was terrible today. No problem, Simone smiled. I'm Simone, the designer. Julian Harper. He extended his hand. Architect, and this is my sister Lena. We're redoing her apartment. Julian turned out to be a person who was easy and interesting to work with. He was a professional who respected her opinion. Simone felt like an equal partner. A couple of months into their collaboration, Julian invited her out for coffee. Gradually, their meetups became regular, once a week, sometimes more often. Coffee, walks, trips to the movies. Julian was calm, attentive, and had a good sense of humor. He didn't pressure her. One day, as they were sitting on a park bench watching the sunset, Julian asked, "Simone, can I ask you a personal question?" Simone tensed up, but nodded. "Were you ever married?" "Very briefly," Simone exhaled. "A few hours. The wedding didn't work out." "Got it." Julian nodded. "Do you want to talk about it?" "Not right now," she confessed. "Maybe later, when I'm ready." "That's fine," he smiled. "Then just know that whatever happened in the past doesn't make you any less. You're awesome, talented, strong, and I like spending time with you." Simone rested her head on his shoulder. A year after the divorce, Simone opened a small office, 2 rooms downtown. Her mom, friends, and even her dad came to the opening. Julian brought a huge bouquet of flowers and a bottle of champagne. "To new beginnings," he raised his glass. "May dreams come true and troubles retreat." "To freedom," Simone added. Doris stood aside, watching her daughter. Simone was laughing. Her eyes were bright, her cheeks rosy, and her movements were light and free. This was a living, genuine, happy person. "You did good." Kendra approached Doris and hugged her shoulder. "You saved her that day." "I'm her mother," Doris smiled. "What mother wouldn't save her daughter?" In the evening, Simone and Doris stayed alone in the new office. They sat on the windowsill. "Mom," Simone took her mother's hand. "I want to tell you something. If it hadn't been for that note, if you hadn't understood, hadn't rallied everyone, hadn't pulled me out of there, I would be living in a nightmare right now. You truly saved my life, and I will never forget that. You are the best mom in the world." Doris hugged her daughter. Then Simone asked, "Mom, how about you? You need to live and be happy too." "I am happy," Doris smiled. "When I see you happy, that is my happiness." "But you deserve your own happiness," Simone insisted. "Maybe it's time to start dating someone?" "We'll see." Doris waved her hand dismissively, but something warm stirred in her soul. A few months later, when Simone and Julian officially started dating, Doris knew everything unfolded exactly as it should have. That terrifying wedding, the note in the bouquet, the escape, it was all not an end, but a beginning. One evening, Simone came to visit her mother. "Mom, remember that note? The one I hid in the bouquet?" "Of course I remember." Doris nodded. "I keep it in my jewelry box with your childhood drawings. That note is a symbol of your strength, not your weakness." Simone thought for a moment, then smiled. "You're right, you know. I was trapped then, but I found a way out, and you heard me." "We are both incredible women." Doris clinked her teacup against her daughter's. Another year later, Julian proposed to Simone. It was simple, on the same park bench where they first really talked. "I'm not a millionaire," he said. "I can't offer you mansions and yachts, but I can promise that I will respect you, listen to you, and support you, that you will always be free, even when you become my wife. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered, 1,000 times, yes. The wedding was small, about 30 close friends and family. It was held in a modest restaurant. Simone wore a simple white dress. Julian wore a suit without a tie. And when it was time to toss the bouquet, Simone turned and handed it directly to Doris. "This is for you, Mom," she said, "because you deserve your own happiness, and it's definitely coming to you." Doris took the bouquet, pressed it to her chest, and looked at her daughter, happy, free, and loved, and understood. This is true happiness, not in money, not in luxury, not in show, but in seeing your loved ones happy. "Thank you, darling," Doris hugged Simone, "for being you, for being strong, for teaching me how to be strong." "You taught me."
Simone leaned into her mother. You showed me that love is not a cage, but wings, that true care is about giving freedom, not taking it away. Doris thought about how strange life was, how the most beautiful things could be born from the most terrifying, and how one note in a bouquet could change everything. And she was grateful to fate for the wedding that didn't happen, because thanks to it, their real life, free, honest, and happy, did. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.